The footage is terrifying, but it shows what a full-blown seizure is like for Céline.
Squeeze Brian's hand if you can.
Atta girl. Good job, boss.
Good. So she's still with us?
Have you heard what happened to Céline Dion? The answer will break your heart. The woman who gave us the most powerful voice in music can barely speak. The legend who commanded the world's greatest stages now struggles to walk across a room. And the disease destroying her body is so rare that when she was diagnosed, even her doctors had never seen a case before. What you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about the woman behind My Heart Will Go On. Let's go back to where it all began. Quebec. March 30th, 1968. A tiny home bursting at the seams with children. 14 kids to be exact. Céline was the youngest, born into a family where music was everything but money was nothing. Her parents, Adhémar and Thérèse Dion, ran a small piano bar out of their home, and while love filled every corner, financial security remained a distant dream. The Dion children wore hand-me-downs, shared bedrooms, and learned early that survival meant sticking together. Young Céline wasn't the confident superstar we know today. She was teased relentlessly at school. Kids mocked her appearance, her teeth, her skinny frame. She didn't fit in, and she knew it. But what she lacked in conventional beauty, she made up for with a voice that seemed to come from somewhere beyond this world. By age 5, she was performing at her parents' bar. By 12, she had written her first song with her mother. And at just 12 years old, her mother sent a recording to music manager René Angelil. When René first heard that tape, he wept. He immediately mortgaged his house to finance her debut album. Think about that. A grown man, a successful music manager, risking everything on a child's voice. But he saw something in Céline that no one else could see yet. He saw a future that would change music history. What he couldn't see was how complicated their relationship would become. Céline was 13 when she met René. He was 38. He became her manager, her mentor, her everything. For years, their relationship remained professional, though whispers of something more circulated behind closed doors. Then, when Céline turned 19, everything changed. They began dating in secret, hiding their relationship from the public for 5 years because they knew people wouldn't understand. They knew the age gap would raise eyebrows, spark criticism, fuel tabloid fires. In 1994, they finally went public, marrying in a lavish ceremony at Montreal's Notre Dame Basilica. The dress alone weighed nearly 20 pounds, designed with a 20-foot train that took cathedral workers to manage. The ceremony was broadcast live on Canadian television. Critics called it inappropriate. Supporters called it true love. Céline called it destiny. René gave me my career, she would later say. But more than that, he gave me life. And what a career it was. By the mid-1990s, Céline Dion wasn't just famous, she was a phenomenon. Her 1996 album, Falling Into You, won Album of the Year at the Grammys and sold over 32 million copies worldwide. Then came 1997, and the song that would define her forever. James Cameron's Titanic needed a theme song. The film's composer, James Horner, wanted Céline, but she didn't want to do it. She thought it sounded too schmaltzy, too over the top. She turned it down multiple times. Sony Music eventually had to pressure her into recording it. She did it in one take, reluctantly, assuming it would disappear into obscurity. Instead, My Heart Will Go On became one of the best-selling singles in history. Over 18 million copies sold worldwide. It topped charts in nearly every country. It won the Oscar for Best Original Song. It became the soundtrack to millions of first dances, first kisses, and broken hearts. For decades, it remained untouchable, beloved, iconic. But here's where things get complicated. By the 2010s, cultural attitudes had shifted. What once seemed romantic now seemed overplayed. Music critics started ranking My Heart Will Go On among the most annoying songs ever recorded. Not because it was bad, but because it was everywhere. Radio stations still played it constantly. Karaoke bars couldn't escape it. And for every person who teared up hearing those opening notes, another person rolled their eyes. Céline herself grew to resent the song. She admitted in interviews that she was tired of it, that she couldn't understand why people still wanted to hear it after so many years. Yet she performed it anyway, because that's what the world expected. That's what the world demanded. And Céline Dion had spent her entire life giving the world exactly what it wanted, no matter the cost. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw Céline at the absolute peak of her powers. Her Las Vegas residency at Caesar's Palace, which began in 2003, became the blueprint for modern Vegas entertainment. Other artists had done residencies before, but none like this. Celine's show, A New Day, ran for 5 years, grossing over $385 million and selling out nearly every single performance. She proved that Vegas wasn't where careers went to die. It was where legends came to reign. But behind the standing ovations and sold-out crowds, something was changing. Celine's body was sending her warnings. Small things at first. Muscle stiffness that wouldn't go away. Spasms that came out of nowhere. Difficulty controlling her movements during rehearsals. She ignored them. She was Céline Dion. She had performed through sickness before. She could push through anything. Then 2016 arrived, and with it came the darkest year of her life. René Angélil had been battling throat cancer for years. The diagnosis came in 1999, just as Celine's career was exploding. He underwent surgery to remove a cancerous tumor, and for a while, it seemed like he'd beaten it. But cancer is a patient enemy. It waited, and in 2014, it returned with a vengeance. By early 2016, René was dying. Céline knew it. Her children knew it. The world didn't know how bad things had gotten, but they would soon. On January 14th, 2016, René Angélil passed away at their Las Vegas home. He was 73 years old. Celine's husband, her manager, her first love, her everything was gone. The funeral was massive. Canadian dignitaries attended. Thousands of fans lined the streets. But Céline barely remembers any of it because she was still reeling from shock. And just as she tried to process this unimaginable loss, another blow landed. 2 days later, on January 16th, her older brother Daniel Dion died of cancer. He was 59, 2 deaths in 2 days. 2 family members ripped away before she could even catch her breath. The grief was suffocating, all-consuming, unbearable. But Céline did what she had always done. She kept going. She returned to her Vegas residency just 3 weeks after René's death because, she said, that's what he would have wanted. That's what her family needed. That's what her fans expected. But something inside her had broken. The years following René's death were brutal. Céline threw herself into work, performing night after night, trying to outrun her grief. She lost a dramatic amount of weight, prompting media outlets to speculate about eating disorders and depression. Fashion critics mocked her increasingly daring outfits, from backwards tuxedos to avant-garde couture that confused as much as it impressed. The woman who once played it safe on red carpets was now taking risks, pushing boundaries, and not everyone appreciated the transformation. She faced body shaming on social media. Tabloids published unflattering photos with cruel headlines questioning her health and appearance. Some fans worried she was wasting away. Others accused her of seeking attention. The truth was simpler and sadder. She was grieving, and grief doesn't care about public opinion. In 2023, something unusual happened. Rolling Stone published a list of the greatest singers of all time, and Céline Dion was nowhere to be found. Not in the top 10, not in the top 50, not even in the top 100. For an artist who had sold over 250 million records worldwide, who had won 5 Grammy Awards, who had delivered some of the most powerful vocal performances in music history, the snub was shocking. Her fans didn't take it quietly. A group staged an actual protest outside Rolling Stone's offices, holding signs that read, "Céline was robbed" and "Respect the voice." It was a bizarre moment in celebrity culture, fans physically demonstrating over a magazine ranking. But it showed how deeply people cared about her legacy, and how protective they'd become of an artist who had given so much of herself to the world. Yet even as fans rallied to defend her, Céline was fighting a battle none of them knew about. The muscle stiffness was getting worse, the spasms more frequent. She started canceling shows, offering vague explanations about health issues without going into detail. People assumed it was stress, or lingering effects of grief, or simply age catching up with her. They had no idea she was dealing with something far more serious. Stiff person syndrome. The name sounds almost benign, like a temporary condition you could fix with stretching or physical therapy. But SPS is a nightmare. It's a rare neurological disorder affecting roughly 1 in a million people. The immune system attacks the nervous system, causing progressive muscle rigidity and painful spasms. In severe cases, patients become human statues, their muscles locked in painful positions they can't control. For a singer, For a performer whose entire career depends on breath control and physical expression, SPS is a death sentence. Céline couldn't hold notes the way she used to. Her diaphragm seized up mid-song. Her legs locked during rehearsals. Some spasms were so violent they broke her ribs. She couldn't walk without assistance some days. The woman who once commanded stages all over the world now struggled to move from room to room in her own home. Her sister Claudette revealed just how bad things had become in a heartbreaking interview. "She no longer has control over her muscles," Claudette said. "She's working hard, but it's an illness we know so little about. There are spasms that won't release." The words painted a devastating picture. This wasn't something Céline could power through with determination. This wasn't like grief or fatigue or stress. This was her body betraying her in the cruelest way imaginable. In December 2022, Céline made the decision to go public with her diagnosis. The video she posted was raw and emotional, showing vulnerability that fans had rarely seen from her. "These spasms affect every aspect of my daily life," she explained through tears, "sometimes causing difficulties when I walk and not allowing me to use my vocal cords to sing the way I'm used to." She canceled her entire European tour, then her North American dates, then plans for a new Vegas residency that had been years in the making. Millions of dollars in ticket sales vanished. Concert promoters scrambled. Fans who had waited years for the chance to see her live were devastated. But Céline had no choice. She physically couldn't perform anymore. The announcement sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Suddenly, everyone was talking about stiff person syndrome. Medical websites crashed from traffic as people tried to understand what Céline was facing. Neurologists gave interviews explaining the rarity and severity of the condition. And slowly, the public began to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't a temporary break. This might be the end. But Céline wasn't ready to give up. She started aggressive treatment, medications, physical therapy, experimental protocols. She documented part of her journey in a 2024 documentary titled I Am, Céline Dion. The film pulled back the curtain on her struggles in ways that shocked even longtime fans. They saw her unable to stand without support. They watched her mid-spasm, her body contorting in pain. They heard her voice crack and fail as she tried to sing. One particularly harrowing scene showed Céline in the middle of a severe spasm episode during a therapy session. Her body locked up completely. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Medical staff rushed to her side, and for nearly 10 minutes, they worked to release the tension in her muscles. When it was finally over, Céline was exhausted, defeated, and terrified. "I nearly died," she admitted in the documentary. "The spasms are so strong, they can break bones." The documentary was difficult to watch. It humanized Céline in ways the public had never seen. This wasn't the glamorous superstar in designer gowns. This was a woman fighting for her life, for her career, for any scrap of normalcy. And yet, even in her darkest moments, she spoke with hope. "I'm not giving up," she said. "I will sing again." But would she? By 2025, the question remained unanswered. There is no cure for stiff person syndrome. Treatment focuses on managing symptoms, but the disease is progressive. Some patients stabilize. Others deteriorate rapidly. Every case is different. And Céline's case is especially complex because of the physical demands of her profession. Even if she regains some control over her muscles, will she ever regain control over her voice? The speculation reached a fever pitch in early 2025 when rumors swirled that Céline might make a surprise appearance at the Eurovision Song Contest in Basel, Switzerland. After all, she had won Eurovision in 1988 for Switzerland, launching her international career. A return performance would be symbolic, emotional, triumphant. Fans convinced themselves it would happen. Social media buzzed with theories and supposed insider information. Some even claimed to have confirmation. But when Eurovision came and went without Céline, the disappointment was crushing. Fans took to Twitter expressing their heartbreak, their frustration, their worry. Some felt misled by the speculation. Others simply mourned the reality that Céline wasn't well enough to perform. The silence from her team only deepened the concern. Yet, here's what people often forget amid all the tragedy and controversy. Céline Dion has been defying expectations her entire life. She was the youngest of 14 children, who became the biggest star her family ever produced. She was the awkward teenager who became one of the most beautiful voices in music. She was the woman who married her much older manager and built a relationship that lasted decades against all odds. She was the artist who turned down the biggest song of her career and then made it legendary anyway. She has survived poverty, ridicule, loss, and now a disease that most people don't survive intact. And throughout it all, she has remained fiercely determined to keep going. In interviews, even recent ones, she speaks not with resignation, but with defiance. "I have two choices," she said in one candid moment. "Either I train like an athlete, or I switch off. And I don't want to switch off." That's the Céline Dion that fans remember. That's the woman who once said she would perform until her last breath because singing isn't what she does. It's who she is. And maybe that's what makes this story so heartbreaking. Not just that she's suffering, but that the thing she loves most in the world has been taken from her against her will. The fashion controversies seem trivial now. The body shaming, the Rolling Stone snub, even the debates over my heart will go on. All of it fades in comparison to the real battle she's fighting. Because this isn't about chart positions, or critical acclaim, or public perception. This is about a woman trying to reclaim her body, her voice, her life, her children. René Charles, now in his 20s, and twins Eddie and Nelson, teenagers, have watched their mother struggle with a grace and strength that mirrors her own. They lost their father. Now they watch their mother fight a disease that has no guaranteed outcome. And yet, by all accounts, Céline has shielded them as much as possible, maintaining normalcy, ensuring they have lives beyond her illness. The Dion family has always been about resilience. Those 14 children growing up in that cramped Quebec home learned early that life doesn't give you what you want. You have to fight for it. And Céline, the youngest of them all, learned that lesson better than anyone. She fought for her career. She fought through loss. And now she's fighting for her future. But here's the question that haunts everyone who loves her. What does that future look like? Will we ever hear her sing live again? Will she ever command a stage the way she once did, belting out power ballads that brought audiences to tears? Or will stiff person syndrome steal that from her forever? Her doctors can't say for certain. Her family remains cautiously optimistic. Her fans pray for a miracle. And Céline herself? She keeps working. She keeps trying. She keeps hoping that one day she'll stand on a stage again and prove to the world that even the rarest disease couldn't silence the voice that once stopped time. Because that's what Céline Dion does. She survives. She endures. She finds a way. From the tiny piano bar in Quebec to the biggest stages in the world, from childhood teasing to global superstardom, from devastating loss to unimaginable illness, she has faced every challenge with the same fierce determination. And maybe, just maybe, that determination will be enough. Maybe the treatments will work. Maybe she'll find a way to manage the spasms, to control the stiffness, to sing again. Or maybe she won't. Maybe the last time we heard her sing was already behind us, and we didn't even know to cherish it. Either way, one thing remains certain. Céline Dion's story isn't just about music. It's about the human spirit. It's about what happens when everything you've worked for, everything you've built, everything you are gets threatened by forces beyond your control. And it's about whether you give up or keep fighting, even when the odds seem impossible. So have you heard what happened to Céline Dion? She fell in love with a man twice her age and built a life with him. She gave the world its heart and then watched her own break when he died. She faced criticism, controversy, and cruel judgment from people who could never understand what it takes to be her. And now she's fighting a battle against a disease so rare that most doctors will never see another case like hers. But she's still here, still fighting, still hoping, still believing that one day, that voice, the voice that made the world stop and listen, will sing again. And until that day comes, or doesn't come, her legacy remains untouchable. Not because of the records she sold, or the awards she won, but because of the way she lived, boldly, fearlessly, with her whole heart, until the very end. That's what happened to Céline Dion, and her story isn't over yet. But what do you think? Will Céline ever perform again? Should she focus only on her health? Or do you believe she has one more comeback in her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And while you're there, let's flood the comments with love. Write, "Get well soon, Céline," or share a prayer and message of support for her recovery. Sometimes, knowing the world is cheering you on makes all the difference. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into the lives of your favorite stars. Before you go, click on the video on your screen right now about the disturbing details discovered in Bobby Christina Brown's autopsy report. It's a story that shocked the world, and you won't believe what they found. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.